My family never believed in ghosts. Not my mother, not my brother, and definitely not me. That is why I still have trouble explaining what happened to us. The first time I said it out loud, I was standing in our kitchen with a bottle of water in my hand. My older brother, Daniel, was leaning against the counter, scrolling on his phone. I asked him, almost as a joke, "Do you believe in spirits?" He looked at me like I'd asked him if the moon was made of paper. Then he shrugged and said, "No." But there was one thing I never understood. That got my attention. Before he could continue, I asked him something I had been holding in for years. "When we lived in the old house, did you ever try to scare me when I came home from school?" Daniel laughed a little. "Yeah, once. I shot a foam dart at you while you were on the computer." My stomach dropped. I remembered that. But that was not what I meant. I was in 7th grade when it started. We had just moved into a 2-story house at the edge of a quiet neighborhood. The place looked normal from outside, but inside, everything felt strangely narrow. The upstairs hallway was short, with my room at one end, Daniel's room at the other, and a bathroom in between. If you stepped out of the bathroom and turned right, the stairs led down to a small landing, then turned again toward the front door. We had one of those old alarm boxes near the entrance. Anytime a door or window opened, a flat robotic voice announced it through the house. Front door. Casement window. That thing was annoying most days. But one afternoon, it became the only reason I knew I had not imagined everything. I had come home from school tired and in a bad mood. Mom had called to say Daniel was leaving soon to meet a friend, and she and my dad would be working late. I was used to being alone, but I was always quiet when the house was empty. I had this childish fear that if someone was hiding inside, silence would keep them from finding me. I went upstairs, dropped my backpack in my room, and put in earbuds to watch videos. After a while, I paused the video and went to the bathroom. I was about to flush when I heard a heavy thud from Daniel's room. Not a small sound. Not a book falling. It sounded like a grown person had stomped once on the floor. I froze for a second, then told myself Daniel was probably still there, packing a bag or looking for something before leaving. I flushed, washed my hands, and waited to hear him call out. The house became so still that the silence felt thick. Then I heard a voice. It came from Daniel's room. Low, slow, too deep to be his. Not loud enough for me to understand, but clear enough that I could hear certain letters scrape through the words. S sounds, T sounds. A mutter that rose and fell like someone was talking to himself through clenched teeth. I turned off the sink. I did not have my phone. The house phone was on a tiny shelf in the bathroom, but it beeped loudly with every number, and I was too scared to touch it. Then the footsteps started. Heavy steps came out of Daniel's room and moved down the short hallway toward the bathroom. Each step sounded wrong, like the weight was too much for the floorboards. I locked the bathroom door and backed toward the window. The footsteps stopped right outside. There was no knock, no voice. Just breathing, or maybe the same low muttering, right on the other side of the door. I covered my mouth with both hands. For a few seconds, I was sure the door would shake. I pictured some stranger bursting in, and I knew I would not be able to fight him. I was a skinny kid in a locked bathroom with nowhere to go except a tiny window. Then the footsteps moved away. Slowly, they headed toward the stairs. I heard them reach the landing. Then came a crash. The kind of crash that makes your body jump before your mind understands it. Something slammed on the middle platform, then again at the bottom of the stairs. A moment later, the alarm box spoke from below. Front door. The door opened, then shut, and the house went silent again. I stayed in that bathroom with my hand on the doorknob, waiting for my heart to slow down. I wanted to believe someone had broken in and left. That was terrifying, but at least it was simple. A person could enter a house. A person could walk down a hallway. A person could run out the front door. But what happened next did not fit. Beside the bathroom door, near the floor, there was a small laundry chute. It dropped straight down to the laundry room below. From the front door, it would take at least half a minute to reach that room, even if someone ran. Less than 10 seconds after the alarm announced the front door, something attacked the laundry chute from underneath. The little metal door rattled violently. Bong, bang, bang. It sounded like someone was stabbing upward with the handle of a broom, trying to punch through the chute and reach the bathroom from below. The door shook so hard I thought the latch would snap. I stood there without breathing. Then it stopped. I waited until my legs hurt. When I finally opened the bathroom door, the hallway was empty. Daniel's room was empty too. His closet was open, but nothing looked stolen. I crept to my bedroom, shut the door, and held the knob with both hands because my room had no lock. I called Mom. She did not answer. I called Dad. Nothing. So I sat on the floor with my back against the door until their car pulled into the driveway hours later. No one believed me. Mom said old houses make noise. Dad said the alarm probably glitched. Daniel said I had scared myself. Years passed, and I tried to bury it. We moved out of that house when I was 16 and into a cramped apartment building in New York. It was not much better. The halls always smelled like old food, wet paint, and cigarettes. Our apartment was second to last on the 7th floor. The last apartment belonged to a man none of us really knew. He was probably in his 60s, thin, with gray stubble and eyes that never seemed to blink. Most evenings, he sat in the hallway on the windowsill near his door, watching people come and go. Mom told me not to speak to him. I didn't, but he spoke to me. At first, it was just, hello. Then, one evening he said, hello, Lena. I had never told him my name. After that, he used it every time. The way he said it made my skin crawl, like he was tasting the word before letting it out. One Friday night, Mom had a late shift. I came home around 9, and he was in his usual place by the window. I tried to unlock our door quickly, but my hands were shaking because he was staring at me. Your mother working tonight, Lena? He asked. I hate admitting this, but I nodded. He smiled, but only with one side of his mouth. I went inside, locked the door, and pushed a chair against it. For the next hour, I tried to act normal. I ate leftovers, folded laundry, and took a shower. That was when I heard the first scraping sound. It came from behind the bathroom wall. At first, I thought it was pipes. Then it came again, closer and rougher, like metal teeth chewing into plaster. I shut off the water and listened. The sound stopped. I got dressed as fast as I could and stepped into my bedroom. The same sound came from there now, soft but steady. Scrape, pause, scrape. I searched the room, pulling back curtains, looking under the bed, opening the closet even though I already knew no one could be there. Then I noticed a tiny black dot in the wall beside my dresser. It was so small, I almost missed it. I crouched down and leaned closer. On the other side of that hole, an eye blinked. I fell backward so hard, my shoulder hit the bed frame. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then the eye vanished, and I heard the neighbor's floorboards creak on the other side of the wall. The bathroom. I ran back and felt along the shower wall until my fingers found another hole, freshly made, hidden near the corner where steam would fog the tile. I called Mom, whispering so hard my throat hurt. While I was telling her, someone knocked on our apartment door. Not a normal knock, a flat, steady pounding. Then the neighbor's voice came through the wood. Open this door, Lena. I didn't do anything. My mother started shouting through the phone for me to call the police. I locked myself in the bedroom and dialed emergency services from under the desk because I suddenly felt like every wall had an eye in it. The neighbor kept knocking, then stopped, then knocked again. Every time he spoke, he said my name. Lena, open up. You're confused. By the time the officers arrived, he was back inside his apartment, pretending he had been asleep. They found the holes. They also found a small hand drill, a narrow metal rod, and scratches along the shared wall. Mom pressed every charge she could. The building management evicted him within a month, but the damage inside me stayed longer than the damage in the walls. For a while, I told myself that was the end of it. The old house had been fear. The neighbor had been a real man doing real terrible things, different places, different explanations. Daniel did not agree. One night, after I finally told him everything from the old house, his face changed. He said, my room had the attic door, remember? I nodded. He said he used to hear tapping above his ceiling. Not squirrels, not pipes, tapping in patterns. Sometimes something scratched at the attic hatch from the other side. "I thought it was you," he said. "I thought it was you," I whispered back. Neither of us slept much that night. A year later, Daniel invited me on a camping trip with two of his friends, Marcus and Ava. I almost said no, but Daniel promised it would help me clear my head. Marcus was an outdoors guy, the kind of person who owned 3 knives and knew which berries could kill you. Ava was quieter, but she had that calm, brave energy I wished I had. Marcus did not like crowded campsites. He said camping beside strangers and bathrooms was not camping. So he drove us deep into a wooded area outside the city, down a dirt road that barely looked like a road. We parked where the trees thickened and the tire tracks faded. It felt wrong immediately. Not haunted house wrong. Not creepy neighbor wrong. Something older. The kind of wrong that makes birds go quiet. I helped Daniel set up the tents while Marcus collected wood. Ava unpacked food, flashlights, and a first aid kit. By nightfall, the fire was strong, and everyone was relaxed except me. We sat around talking for hours. Daniel joked about childhood. Marcus told stories about getting lost in the woods as a kid. Ava laughed, but kept glancing past the firelight. Eventually, she went to her tent. Daniel followed soon after. Marcus and I stayed up, speaking more softly. That was when he raised one hand. Beyond the orange circle of the fire, something was walking. At first, I thought deer. Then the steps circled us. Slow, heavy, patient. Marcus whispered, "Probably an animal," but he did not sound convinced. The sound came closer. Under the footsteps, there was another noise, a clicking, wet and uneven, followed by a low growl that rose into a breathy mutter. My mouth went dry. I had heard that mutter before. Not the same voice exactly, but the same shape of sound. Low, broken, like words being dragged through mud. Marcus stood and told me to get in my tent. I crawled inside, zipped it, and pressed myself against the far side. The fire outside cast moving shadows over the nylon walls. I could see Marcus's shape for a moment, then Daniel's tent, then the trees beyond. The clicking became louder. Something walked past my tent on 2 legs. The shadow was too tall. Its shoulders were bent forward, its head hanging low, and one arm looked longer than the other. It moved with slow, deliberate steps, like it knew we were hiding and enjoyed making us wait. I held both hands over my mouth. Then Ava screamed. Not a startled scream. A scream that tore itself out of her. Daniel shouted, "Run!" I unzipped my tent and crawled out as everyone exploded into motion. Marcus had a flashlight, but dropped it almost immediately. We ran through the black woods, with branches whipping our faces and the thing crashing behind us. I could hear it closest to me. Every step hit the ground like a hammer. I do not know how Marcus found the truck. One moment we were blind in the trees, and the next, the dark shape of his pickup appeared ahead of us like a miracle. Daniel shoved Ava into the front seat. I threw myself into the back, and Marcus jumped behind the wheel. The engine started, then the headlights came on. For one sharp second, the woods lit up. Something stood at the edge of the trees. I only saw part of it before Marcus slammed the truck into drive. It was tall enough that its head nearly touched the lower branches. Its skin looked pale and stretched, but the face was wrong, almost human and almost blank. Then the truck lurched forward and the thing disappeared into darkness. We tore down the dirt road for maybe 30 seconds before the path ended. A wall of trees stood in front of us. Marcus cursed and shifted into reverse. I begged him to turn off the headlights so it could not see us, but he said he needed them or he would hit a tree. He backed up, pulled forward, backed up again, turning the truck little by little while all of us stared out the windows. That was when I heard the tapping. Not outside the truck. He buzzed us. 3 taps on the roof. Then one long scrape from the back window toward the windshield. Ava started crying. Daniel shouted at Marcus to go. Marcus stomped on the gas before the truck had even straightened out, and we bounced over roots and ruts so hard my teeth hit together. Behind us, something screamed. It did not sound angry. It sounded disappointed. We reached the paved road and did not stop driving until the gas station lights were glowing ahead. We left everything behind: tents, sleeping bags, food, backpacks. None of us ever went back. Later, when we were safe, Ava told us why she had screamed. She had been lying in her tent when she heard breathing outside. Then something pressed into the fabric near her face. Not a hand, not a paw. Something long and narrow pushed the tent wall inward and dragged across it, searching. Daniel said he saw the same shape I saw, only closer. Marcus refused to talk about it for weeks. When he finally did, he said no animal he knew could walk like that, and no person could be that size. I wanted that to be the last strange thing in my life. It was not. 3 months after the camping trip, Mom called me from work. Her voice was tight. She asked if I had been in her apartment that afternoon. I said no. She asked if Daniel had. He had not. When she came home, the chair by the front door was moved aside. Nothing was stolen. No windows were broken. The alarm had not gone off, but there were fresh scratches around the old, patched holes in my bedroom wall. That night, Daniel and I searched every inch of the apartment while Mom waited in the hallway with a neighbor. We found nothing. No person, no hidden camera, no new hole. Just one mark on the inside of my closet door. 3 taps scratched into the wood, then one long line beneath them. The same sound from the roof of Marcus's truck. Daniel wanted to call it a coincidence. I wanted that too. But after everything, coincidence felt like a word people use when the truth is too heavy to carry. So here is the truth as I know it. Something was in our old house. Maybe it came from the attic. Maybe it followed the sound of fear. Maybe that neighbor was just a disturbed man, or maybe he noticed something around me before I did. I do not know. I only know that the same pattern kept appearing in places that had no reason to be connected. A hallway, a wall, a forest, a closet door. I used to think monsters were either human or imaginary. Now, I am not so sure. My family still calls itself skeptical. We still laugh when people tell ghost stories. We still try to explain every strange noise before letting fear in. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up and listen. If the apartment is quiet, I can almost convince myself it is over. Then the building settles. A pipe knocks. A neighbor drops something upstairs. And for one awful second, I am back in that bathroom, hands over my mouth, listening to heavy footsteps stop outside the door. I still do not know who was in the house that day. I do not know who looked through the wall. I do not know what followed us in the woods. But I know this. Whatever it was, it knew my name. And sometimes, when the hallway outside my apartment goes completely silent, I think it is still waiting for me to answer. After the marks appeared inside my closet, I stopped sleeping with the door closed. That probably sounds strange. Most people would do the opposite. They would shut the closet, block it with a chair, maybe drag a dresser in front of it and pretend nothing could get through. But I had learned something by then. Closed doors did not stop it. They only gave it somewhere to wait. For weeks, nothing happened. Mom tried to make the apartment feel normal again. She burned candles, played music while cooking, and kept every light on until sunrise. Daniel stayed over more often, claiming he just wanted to save money, but I knew the truth. He had heard the same footsteps I had heard. He had seen the same impossible shadow in the woods. Neither of us said it out loud. One morning, Mom found an old cardboard box while cleaning the hallway closet. It had belonged to my father, who had left years before we moved to the apartment. Inside were yellowed bills, school photos, a broken watch, and a stack of envelopes tied together with string. Daniel almost threw them away. I don't know what made me stop him. Maybe it was the handwriting. My name was on the top envelope. Not Lena, my full name. Elena Marlowe. The envelope was sealed, but the paper looked old enough to tear apart with one breath. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. It showed our old house. Not the way I remembered it, with faded paint and dead leaves in the gutter. This picture was older. The house looked newer, cleaner, almost proud. Standing in front of it were my mother, my father, Daniel as a little boy, and me as a toddler. But there was someone else in the upstairs window. At first, I thought it was a reflection. Then I held the photo closer. A man stood in Daniel's bedroom window, tall, pale, his head tilted slightly to one side. His hand was raised against the glass. 3 fingers were touching the window. Below them, one long scratch cut through the dust. Jaw, the same mark. Daniel grabbed the photo from me and stared at it until his face went white. "Who took this?" he whispered. I turned the photo over. On the back, written in my father's handwriting, were 7 words. "It followed us here. Don't answer it." Mom saw the photo and began to cry before we even asked her anything. She sat at the kitchen table with her hands folded so tightly her knuckles turned pale. For the first time in my life, she looked scared of us. Not for us, of us. She told us Dad had not left because of money, or fighting, or another woman. He had left because he believed something had attached itself to our family when I was born. According to Mom, it started with small things. Toys moving from one room to another. Whispering through baby monitors. Daniel waking up with scratches on his door. Then Dad began hearing someone call him from the attic in a voice that sounded like me, even when I was asleep in my crib. He wanted to move. Mom thought he was losing his mind. Then one night, Dad went upstairs after hearing me crying. But I was not upstairs. I was asleep beside Mom on the couch. The crying had come from Daniel's room. When Dad opened the attic hatch, something whispered his name. Mom said he was never the same after that. He moved out 3 weeks later. Before leaving, he begged her not to let me speak to anything I could not see. Not through walls, not through doors, not in dreams. I wanted to hate him for leaving. Instead, I felt cold all over, because I remembered something I had never told anyone. When I was little, maybe 5 or 6, I used to have an imaginary friend. His name was Oren. I did not choose that name. He told me he lived in the walls, or that was what I told Mom whenever she found me whispering near vents, closets, or the laundry chute. I said Oren was shy. I said he only came when the house was quiet. Mom thought it was normal childhood nonsense. But now, sitting at the table with that photograph between us, I remembered his voice. Low, slow, full of sharp S&T sounds. That evening, Daniel and I searched my childhood boxes. At the bottom of one, under old drawings and school papers, we found a picture I had made in crayon. It showed our family standing outside the old house. And behind us, drawn much taller than everyone else, was a pale figure with one long arm. Above its head, in crooked child handwriting, I had written, "Orion is waiting for me." We decided to find Dad. Mom had not spoken to him in years, but she still had an old number saved under a name that was not his. She hesitated before calling, as if the phone itself might punish her for trying. It rang 7 times. Then a man answered. He sounded older than I expected, tired, far away. Mom said his name. It was silence. Then he whispered, "Did she answer it?" Mom looked at me. "No," she said, "but it's back." Dad did not ask what she meant. He only gave us an address and told us to come before dark. He lived 2 hours away in a small house near the coast. Every window had wind chimes hanging inside it. Not outside, inside. The walls were covered with mirrors facing corners, and every closet door had been removed. When he opened the door, I almost did not recognize him. His beard was gray, his eyes sunken, but the fear in his face was familiar. He hugged Daniel. He barely touched me. Then he led us to the basement. There, on a table, were dozens of notebooks. Every page was filled with dates, places, noises, names, and the same symbol repeated over and over. 3 short lines, 1 long line beneath. Dad said the thing was not a ghost. It's an invitation, he told us. I did not understand. He explained that some families inherit houses, money, illness, memories. Ours had inherited a door. Not a real door with hinges, but a crack between whatever our world was and whatever waited beside it. The mark was not a warning. It was a knock. 3 taps, and scrape, and every time someone noticed it, feared it, spoke to it, or tried to understand it, the door opened a little wider. The neighbor in the Bronx had drilled holes because he had heard me talking through the wall when I was a child. He thought I was speaking to him. The thing in the woods had not chased us randomly. It had followed the oldest sound it knew. W, my voice. I felt sick. Dad pulled one notebook from the pile and opened it to the first page. There was my name again. Ikna. Elena, written before I was born. I asked him why. He looked at Mom, and she lowered her eyes. That was when the final truth came out. My parents had lost a baby before me, a girl. She had died before she ever opened her eyes. Mom was broken by it. Dad said grief made them desperate. Someone had told my grandmother about an old ritual, something meant to call back what was taken. They did not believe in it. It did anyway. 3 taps on a closed door. 1 long scratch beneath. A name spoken into the dark. Ikna. Elena. 9 months later, I was born. No one said anything for a long time. Then the wind chimes inside the house began to move. Not all at once. Only the ones near the basement stairs. Softly at first, then harder. Dad's face emptied of color. It followed the name, he whispered. Above us, from somewhere on the main floor, came 3 slow knocks. One tap, one tap, one tap. Then, 1 long scrape across the ceiling. Mom started praying. Daniel grabbed my hand. Dad told us not to speak no matter what we heard. The basement door opened by itself. Darkness filled the stairwell. Then a voice drifted down. It sounded like me as a little girl. Huh? My mother sobbed, but covered her mouth. The voice changed. A bio in my ease. Daniel? My brother shut his eyes. Then it became Dad's voice. Elena, come upstairs. I did not move. Something stepped onto the first stair. The wood bent under its weight. Dad reached into a drawer and pulled out an old tape recorder. His hands shook as he pressed play. A baby cried from the speaker. The thing on the stairs stopped. Dad whispered, "It doesn't want you. It wants the one we called back." The crying on the tape grew louder. And then I understood. The baby in the recording was not me. It was the sister who had died. The thing had not followed me because it wanted to harm me. It followed me because I was carrying her place in the world. The stairs creaked again. A pale hand curled around the basement doorway. Too long, too thin, almost human. Dad stepped forward with the recorder. "I called the wrong child," he said. The voice in the dark whispered, "No." For the first time, it did not sound like a monster. It sounded like a little girl. Then every light in the basement went out. When they came back on, Dad was gone. So was the recorder. The basement door was shut, and carved into it from the inside was the mark. 3 short lines. Jom, yes, Kalber, Kalber. 1 long line. But underneath, there was something new. Aim, Jock. Not Elena. Not Oren. It was my sister's name. The name my parents had never told me. That night, Mom finally admitted the truth. My name had not been chosen because she loved it. It had been chosen because it was close enough for the ritual, close enough for the thing to mistake me for the child it was promised. I thought that was the twist. I thought the horror was that I had been living someone else's life. But 3 nights later, I woke up to my phone buzzing. A voice message had arrived from Dad's number. There was no speech at first, only static. Then 3 taps, then scrape. And finally, my father's voice, trembling in the dark. "Elena, don't trust your mother." Giggles. Then a little girl giggled. She was the one who knocked first.